Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another UFI Connects, which I think is about number 53. These are our regular webinars, so we can keep together while we are still unable to meet. But luckily last week we had our first face-to-face meeting in Dubai once again. So hopefully we will all be able to meet face-to-face again very soon. So I'm going to hand over in a second to Barbara Weizsäcker, who is running today's session. Just very briefly want to take you through the housekeeping rules. So Barbara will introduce the various speakers. Please right now use the chat to say hello and where you're dialing in from today. And then if you want to ask any questions of the speakers, please do so in the chat. And then the UFI team will come and ask you, we'll let you know when it's your turn, and you can turn your camera on if you don't have it already and ask the speakers face to face. So that's it. Without further ado, over to you, Barbara.
Thank you, Nick, and warm welcome from my side in the name of the European Exhibition Industry Alliance, UFI and EMICA members from Europe. We are today having this EU dialogue and update on the occasion of Global Exhibitions Day, and we're very happy to have speakers from within the industry and from the European Commission here. We have to remember, I mean, we still feel it that our sector is one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. We had a minus of 68% revenue 2020. This year, hopefully can catch up a little bit. Let's hope and see. But now, obviously, with the vaccinations going on and testing and all the other facilities, health and safety in place, we see light at the end of the tunnel. We need to restart and recover, and then obviously we can also seize new opportunities, hopefully in the future. So I'd like to welcome our speakers and all participants and thank UFI for hosting this session again. We have our main speaker, Eric Philippart, as a senior expert for the tourism policy of the European Commission, DG GROW. And them from our sector in alphabetical order. I'll start with Silvia from AUMA in Germany, then we'll have Uta from IFES, the Service Providers International Federation, Juan from Spain, Tomasz from Poland, and Loredana from Italy. These are markets as examples. We could not bring everyone in, but in very different stages of opening and restarting. So I think it will be interesting. I'd like to focus on two phases and divide the session in two parts. One is still like the emergency, the restart and available support in this phase and our needs, obviously. And the second is then really the recovery and also the outlook, new policies, opportunities, investment support, really going forward mid and long term. So the main aim, obviously, is to hear from the EU support to our industry, the news on travel, etc. And then from our industry, where we stand, perhaps also about the financial situation, when and how we will start again, and which are most pressing needs and problems. I'd like to start with a very quick quote by Commissioner Breton, who a few weeks ago opened the International Travel Show in Milano, which was a digital edition, but he said a very nice sentence, which I think is a good introduction. Quote, "It is needless to underline the crucial importance of tourism in Europe's economy. Business travel, exhibitions, fairs, and congresses play an important role in this." So I think with this, we can kickstart our session first with Eric Philippart giving us a quick overview on what are the EU measures and supports and the outlook relevant for our industry. Eric, the floor is yours, and thank you again for being available.
Thank you, Barbara. Very quickly, a kind of preliminary remark. Sometimes business traveler or exhibition, etc., are sometimes overlooked as an important part of the tourism ecosystem. If we are referring to ecosystem, it's something that several commissioners, including and led by Commissioner Breton, is a new approach instead of sector silos approach. we looked at what is really important, irrespective of, you know, those Eurostat NACE codes. And your sector is part of the tourism ecosystem. I happen to have been appointed at the tourism ecosystem godparent. I don't know exactly what this encompasses, but at least I have a bird's eye view about what is happening. But so just to say that next to leisure, because sometimes tourism is confused with leisure, so we refer to travel, business travel, leisure travel, and, you know, visiting friends and relatives. But for us, the three elements are there, and you are there. It is also clear, thanks to you have a number of representatives association, but Barbara has done a very great job from the start. We have set up an ad hoc COVID network starting in February 2020, when we saw that the Chinese market as a big source market, especially for international fairs, was closing down. And then it was clear that East Asia, and then after that, it was the rest of the world was affected. And so we are meeting on a weekly, now bi-weekly basis, indeed to help assessing the magnitude of the shock for you. So, and that is relayed inside the European Commission, also with the Council and the Parliament, so that, for instance, when we the Commission set up a temporary framework for state aid, tourism, and that includes travel business, are explicitly mentioned. It's basically the only sector that has 3 paragraphs about that. So flagging about what is happening to you, and Barbara was your very effective, to the point spokesperson for that, was important to throw to tailor-made a number of rules. State aid was one way to, and I know that the intensity of aid is not always what you expected. Some member states have deeper pockets. They are in a better fiscal position to provide more help than others. But at least we create very quickly, as a Commission, flexibility for member states to cover, you know, first to lean money, then subsidized interest loans, and then after that it was a number of grants. Also about the fixed cost, the possibility for member states to compensate for uncovered fixed cost. And also we discussed, thanks to this group, the Tourism Ecosystem Group, we asked for first an extension of that temporary framework, and also for higher thresholds, because for I suppose that for a small hotel, 3 million euro is a lot of money in terms of fixed cost. But for an exhibition center, for an organizer of an international fair, is pretty small. So we managed to adjust that. Next to those, and this is one of the emergency measure, there's all the things we are working collectively. We are working on for the restart for the leisure part, for visiting friends and family. It's basically now. It's less so for your sector, especially for the segment relying on not national or European fair, but international fairs, because if North American, Asian participant cannot come, you can organize things. But we are progressing on that. So problem is that a number of competence are still in the hands of member states. Member states are still assessing the risk and managing the risk in different ways, and want to keep their liberty to do that. But nevertheless, what the Commission can do is to table a number of proposals for Council recommendations, asking all member states to commit to traffic lights, you know, how traffic lights system. How do you define the risk of some countries, dark red, orange, etc. We have taken into account vaccination progress. Commission has proposed to change the threshold in terms of number of COVID cases registered over the last 14 days, etc. Well, I have 5, 6, 7 minutes, so I cannot enter into the details, but I can take questions after that. But basically, we are working with the council, with the member states, telling them, okay, we should have the same assessment in terms of risk coming from some areas, but more importantly, we need to move now from a country-based risk management. This country is safe, this country is not, but moving from that approach to a person, an individual risk assessment. Now we are on track. We have 12 member states that are ready already technically to issue the European COVID certificate, with information about vaccination, testing, or the fact that you recovered from COVID. So all that allows simply to be fair. I hear in the press now and then they discuss that in terms of granting a privilege. No, it's just basically there are different situations. If you have the possibility, if you decide to get vaccinated, it's normal that you are not submitted to tested. So you are free not to get tested, but then you have to get a PCR or antigen test. So basically, we are working just to have more countries on this white list, the safe list of countries that can send their residents and cross Schengen borders. We are also working on mutual recognition of our certificate, the European certificate, again, Chinese certificate. A number of countries are issuing those certificates. The US is a more difficult case because the Biden administration has decided not to put in place a federal system equivalent to the European one, reflecting what each state, Arkansas, Hawaii, have done. In a number of states, there is not much of a track. So it's basically you want to be vaccinated, you come in and out. Sometimes you just have a paper-based, which are more easy to forge, paper-based proof of vaccination, etc. So we are not there yet, but yesterday, late, the OECD had a ministerial meeting, and that meeting endorsed a document. It was a Spanish-led initiative, and the EU supported that. So we have a document which is a blueprint for safe international traveling, which is looking at a common epidemiologic criteria, a kind of common understanding of those traffic light system, red, orange, what is green, and then the kind of testing requirement, traveling requirement, lifting of quarantine. So that has been endorsed yesterday. So we are progressing about on that critical aspect in terms of some international harmonization, or at least mutual understanding. So that well, it's difficult to put a date, but if intra-EU travel will progressively return to what we knew, that's to say less and less control and basically no restriction to non-essential traveling. It will take a bit more time for international travelers, extra-EU, extra-Schengen travelers. But we are working on that, and possibly, don't quote me on that, but I suppose that the first window, because quarantine is, of course, for business traveler is a no-go when you have a tight agenda. But we are encouraged by what we saw in Spain. There's a number of tests that are proven tests showing that large event B2B, business to business matchmaking event and or event can take place without being turned into a cluster. So with all that evidence, I know that some member states have already a roadmap for your sector, others don't, but we'll finish on that. We have a expert group where experts from all national ministries are there, and what we hear from you, we of course verify, but we pass on and we point at what are best practices, just to accelerate that move towards roadmap, and roadmap that giving you a perspective for September or October. Hopefully no variant of concern will emerge that cannot be tackled by vaccines. So if we want to be optimistic, we are at the beginning of the end of this very long COVID pandemic for a number of regions, including Europe, and that should allow you to resume your activities. And for the rest, I don't want to take more time. Over to you. If you have questions, I'm there for the rest of the webinar. Over.
Eric, thank you very much for this first overview on travel. Let's see how this translates into the national situations. Perhaps we can start with Sylvia from Germany.
Yes, thank you, and hello, everybody. Well, here in Germany, we are finally looking at some opening perspectives in several federal states. Here in Germany, we are looking at 16 legislations deciding on when and how to open trade fairs. Therefore, it is really complicated to get a good overview over the situation in Germany. But so far, I believe there's a consensus that trade fairs should be possible under incidences below 50. And most of the federal states are giving an opening perspective right now. So that's something we were looking forward to for quite a while now. Looking at Spain and other countries reopening their trade fair industry, we are now happy that we also will have some trade fairs to be announced, probably a third quarter this year. This is the restart of the German trade fair industry, and I'm really optimistic since our vaccination process really picked up the last couple of weeks and months, and so I believe many of us also in Europe will be vaccinated, and therefore trade fairs should be possible. Which still is of course is a concern is travel, not because the legal situation, especially for trade fair participants, is that difficult, because for us we were able to achieve with our ministry responsible that trade fair participants got some privileges on entering the country because they were qualified as really important travelers. So it was always possible for trade fair participants, even when they are coming from a risk area, to enter Germany. And we also got some easements on the quarantine obligations, which are of course also huge concerns for visitors and of course exhibitors as well. So travel is a real issue, especially of course for our international trade fairs, and therefore the first trade fairs taking place here in Germany starting July and August are mainly regional trade fairs, and not that much internationality. Then in September and October, we are looking at huge trade fairs like the Caravan Salon in September and the automobile industry trade fair in Munich also in September this year. So these are probably the first events where we will see how also huge events with international, hopefully international participants will take place here in Germany. So I believe we have lots of reasons to be optimistic here. Still, a concern, or maybe it won't be a concern, or a question we ask ourselves right now is test requirements, which will be quite a concern for all trade fair organizers, not just because of logistics, but also because of probably data protection issues. So we are looking into that right now, and right now I'm also looking at some other legislation here in Germany, starting to abolish test requirements. And so maybe, hopefully, when incidences go down, it will be possible to have no test requirements on trade fairs. But so far, right now, most of the legislation here in Germany shows that you have to be tested or vaccinated in order to participate in trade fair. And of course, like everybody, we have to take care of proper spacing, and therefore not that many visitors are allowed as before Corona, of course. So that it is so far. And one huge concern, of course, is the psychological concern, since we don't have so far any programs or guarantees if another trade fair will be cancelled. So I believe right now the biggest issue to get confidence back, especially for exhibitors, that they will have the courage to register for the trade fairs here in Germany.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you.
This extensive account. I think many of the items that you were mentioning are true for the other countries too, with variations. So I'd like to pass on to Uta now. We jump to the service providers, a specific perspective. Thank you, Uta.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Sylvia. Yeah, hello and hello to all the audience. Well, looking at the service providers industry, we are talking about small and medium-sized enterprises. So the average company is something in between 30 and 80 employees big, and therefore these companies have even different approaches and different problems keeping their business running and being able to come back. And well, Sylvia, you just mentioned it. What we are talking about, of course, is confidence. We all need confidence, and confidence means that in this case, not only that people traveling will be safe and healthy, arriving as well as going back, and having no quarantine requirements either in entering the EU or getting back home. But confidence is at this point that exhibitors know that the trade show is going to run. And we have quite a few ideas and announcements from different countries. Looking at Spain, everything is open right now, or Belgium, who's coming along with a time frame saying that from the 1st of September onwards, trade shows can run without any restrictions at all, and they are really stating the state. And quite a few other countries are coming along with incidences. Sylvia, you mentioned it already, with the 50 under 50 for a certain amount of time trade shows can run. And this is a situation which gives exhibitors, and this is what I got back from my members, that they don't want to register because this is a financial risk then if a trade show is postponed or cancelled. So what we then need is really, if we are talking about this incidences or the amount of free hospital beds as in the Netherlands, then we need some kind of state-funded default guarantees, and this is not just for the national exhibitors but for the internationals as well, so that exhibitors will sign and then service provider are able to deliver. And this brings me to the second point, small, medium-sized enterprises. Well, we do have quite a bit of aid for short-term working allowance, but still we have to continue. And I think we have to do some training courses, some educational programs as well, since the requirements for trade show participation will change. So people who do the installation, who do the logistics, who do the dismantle, have to be aware on how to work on site on the one hand side, and they have to be able to consult their customers, our exhibitors, how to run a proper setting for this new normal trade show, so keeping distances and so on. And this is, I think, where the EU, as well as all states together, are really in the same boat and push into the same direction, so that we get the aid for the personal working as well for their education. Because what we are witnessing here is that quite a few people have already left, and when trade shows come back, and even coming back to back, and in an even tighter time frame, we need these people who are willing and able to do all this hands-on work. And if they have left, or if the companies are out of business, we will witness a situation where we cannot manage all these requirements we are waiting for. So there's some work to do with the light at the tunnel as well. So this is from my side, and happy to answer questions if you have some.
Thank you, Uta. Yes, very important aspect, the guarantees for the reopening in case something happens, because I'm just adding a point, insurances for force majeure are not there anymore. So this is very important, and especially for qualification, reskilling, upskilling, that's also an item that Eric might be addressing later on again. Let's quickly move to Spain, please. Juan, we have to speed up a little bit, please.
Okay, hello everyone, and thanks a lot for inviting me to this session previous to the global exhibition industry. First of all, I would like to give you an optimistic or a positive view of the situation, because at least in Spain, we started the exhibitions activity at the end of March with a few exhibitions, and we have continued in April and May with some other regional and national exhibitions. But 2 weeks ago, IFEMA in Madrid held FITUR, the first international exhibition in 2021 of the tourism industry. Maybe some of you know this event, with this time with 7 halls, 44,000 square meters of exhibition space, 55 represented countries, 62,000 visitors, and the presence of the tourism ministers from 28 countries. The government of Spain declared FITUR attendance as essential travel for qualified trade visitors from abroad, naming FITUR as an event of exceptional public interest. As you can understand, many sanitary measures were implemented: control of temperature, mask, hydroalcoholic gel, ventilation in all halls, cameras, limited capacity for each hall, distance between people, distance between the stands, and even PCR tests or antigen tests were compulsory for all trade visitors, exhibitors, journalists, staff, and suppliers before and during the show. It was quite complicated to manage all these measures, and I think you can easily understand that they supposed an extra effort for the organization and an extra cost also. We also planned some other national and international exhibitions in different cities in June, including, for instance, the Mobile World Congress, very well known in Barcelona, and the Automobile Show also in Barcelona in July, with similar measures for participants. But I want to highlight that all these exhibitions now have significantly less visitors and exhibitors than usual, what means less income, but the cost for them is even much higher. The cost for the organizers is even much higher due to all security measures that they have to implement and additional equipment. So it would be good news to get some support from the European Commission to face all these high costs after a large period of no activity or very few events, and very difficult to manage and to celebrate them successfully. This is the message that I wanted to say. Thank you to the audience.
Thanks a lot, Juan. And yeah, it's very good to hear from Spain that things are moving on. But as I had commented to Eric before, of course, revenue-wise and financially, it is still a transition period, difficult one. And of course, it will be at least until the end of the year or early 2022 like this. So I'd like to move on to Poland with Tomasz, please.
Thank you, Barbara. Hello, everybody. The situation in Poland regarding the date of reopening is still uncertain. Polish Chamber of Exhibition Industry, after the consultation with exhibitors, exhibition organizers, and stand builders, service providers in Poland, had prepared the draft of phases and conditions for reopening in 2021 and present it to Polish government. We are waiting for the decision of Polish government on-site trade fairs or events are banned until the 5th of June. Only online trade fairs and events can be organized. There is a hope for unfreezing the trade fair industry at the end of June. Due to the pandemic, the Polish organizers had to postpone or cancel about 70% of exhibition plan for 2021. Of course, our priority is to offer our customers the same standard of services as we have had offered before the coronavirus outbreak. And we, after the unfreezing, we expect 5 to 6 months of preparation to organize the real good show. If it will be allowed for by the government, we will organize as a trade fair organizer in Poland some B2C events during the summer, and first B2B event is planned in Poland to start on the 31st of August in Poznań, and we all assume that the event schedules from August to the end of the year will be about 30 to 40% of the size of the pre-pandemic events. In many companies, the costs associated with the promotion had been significantly reduced, and we apply to government for the creation of temporary fund, which will be a kind of the voucher for the participants of exhibition, congresses, and conferences in order to restore the interest in the participation in the events. So the value of this voucher will be between 5 to 10,000 euro for each. It will the voucher will be dedicated to the small and medium companies, and our really big worry is the worry regarding to the service providers. Will we probably face the increasing cost of materials, problems with the products and the components availability, and the lack of the staff, because more than 50% of the companies from the sectors went bankrupt during this coronavirus period. So that's all news from Poland. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Tomasz. Very interesting what you mentioned with these incentives for companies to participate in the first events, to help them to get back to their platforms. And also what you say about the service providers is exactly what tends to happen to small and medium-sized companies. And that's something that should have been prevented by government aids, but as we are long-term hit, it's not so easy to have all these helps. We move to Italy. Loredana, thank you for waiting. I think you have to unmute, please, Loredana.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you to Mr. Philippart for the interesting information he gave us. In Italy, the fairs are very important because we have small and medium enterprises, and so are the best way to encounter our market. The present situation that the fair or exhibition reopen on June 15th. And this was decided on April 21. And our Prime Minister told us that we can open at rischio calcolato, he told us. That means that we can open according to a good pandemic situation. If the situation changes, we are forced to close. Luckily, now the situation is quite good in Italy. Yesterday, for instance, we have only less than 2,000 people infected, and we have 12 million of people that we have had a full vaccination. So therefore, we open that at this time, we will open, will last forever. We are opening, adopting the rule that decided by our association last year, and approved by the technical committee that organized the reopening of the different sectors. And we have adapted this rule according to the small period that we open in September and October that is interesting to improve what we have decided. We open, but we arrive and we are in a very difficult situation. From March 2020 to now, the Italian fair are open 53 days. That means that we lost 70% of the exhibition, 70% of the turnover, 69% of the exhibitor, and 80% of the visitors. And we can also explain other figures that are no good. But we have a lot of digital exhibition, but they not replace as a number of videos of exhibitor what are the real activity. So in this situation, the situation is difficult, but we are very happy to start to work again, to start to do our work. To start to do our work to start to say the Italian products all over the world, and the European products all over the world, I hope, and the visitor from all the world in Italy. What we need now, I think that in Italy, as in other part of Europe, the situation of our members is not good. So what I ask, what we need is the national government, but the European government take into account the need for claim for damages coming from different countries. I think the best project has been done by Germany, and what Germany make for us, I think, a masterful intervention. And we ask that all the need of the other different countries, starting from mine, that has to be approved from the European community, can be approved in a short time. We need a common entry policy in the European territory that don't create barriers, but simplify access to a circulation within at least our common space. In the past, we have also difference between the Italian region, but I think it's the time to stop the difference between the different European regions, because our part of the work are starting as already started. We need to start again very well and all together. In addition, the last request, we need to be considered an active part of the future of Europe. We have the exhibition, I love to say, for the content of the different exhibition, but also for what they do in this month, what they experiment in this month concerning digitalization, innovation, culture, green revolution, but also health, solidarity, solidarietà. I don't think the translation, but we do a lot in this month for poor people, for hospital and so on, at least in Italy. So I think that the experience can be useful for everyone, and the fair has to be considered important in a very European program. This is our request, and buon lavoro a tutti.
Thank you, Loredana. This is very important to stress also how much we contributed to the communities during the crisis with hospitals, test centers, and now vaccination centers, etc., while not earning anything. So we could see from this overview, and it is the same in different levels in most European countries, that uncertainty is still there. We need clear planning horizons. We have long lead times, very difficult to convince clients to sign if it's not clear whether they will find their customers on the show in the autumn. But okay, we know that Eric and the Commission and also the European Parliament are working hard on making that possible, also with international travel. So I suggest, Eric, if you have any reaction to what you've heard now, and perhaps we move directly to the next step, which is the second part of what I wanted to tackle, the outlook. You know, what are the industrial policies? What are the opportunities coming up in the mid and long term, but also through the programs that the EU has with the recovery fund, etc. So perhaps you can give us a little bit an outlook, and we would be really happy if we could contribute with our platform as the key instrument to implement, to help speed up, you know, the process of the transformation of the economy and the societies towards green and digital in general, with all the different declinations for all the subsectors. We are there, and I think we can really be used as the instrument for us to come back, but also to play just the normal role that we had physically, but also digitally, because we have invested a lot into that. So Eric, please give us a good outlook, and hopefully a little also outlook for help and for support.
Yes, Barbara, I will do what I can. Here about EU funding, we have released a guide, an online guide pointing at the main source of funding, EU funding for tourism, for all the sector, all the element of the ecosystem. It is online, and now I will share with you the link. But of course, we all know that the budget here, there was that exception of COVID, the so-called Recovery and Resilience Facility that authorized, where member states authorized the Commission to borrow a bit more than 750 billion euro to be lended or given to those most affected, most country and the most affected sectors. So you are among these. But of course, considering the magnitude of the shock, you know, the budget of the European Union is a bit above 1% of the EU GDP. So the biggest resources are with national and regional authorities. So there's so much we can do. What we can do is to use that money for things that can be replicated, you know, just for testing purposes. For instance, when we will look at refitting a number of infrastructure. So we always think airport, but you have the conference center, etc. So the idea would be possibly to refit them so that they can operate at nearly normal capacity, even at time of pandemics. We are told that this is not the first one, but the first one that hit Europe for a long time, but it's not the last one. So they might be obviously not money to refit all infrastructure, but a few of them, and to quickly learn how to do that in an efficient way. The Union is there to provide places when we can compare, cooperate, and identify solutions that are developed outside of our national boundaries. So that is for the guide on EU funding and about managing expectations. Here I took a lot of notes, and what is always interesting internally, and also for a number of speeches from top European personalities, is to illustrate things. So I took notes about IFEMA and FITUR. So I heard that, of course, those protocols are complicated, but also costly. If you had an order of magnitude, the percentage increase, or in absolute terms, so we can illustrate for a major international, what do we mean by more costly? 20%, 25%. So, and then we can, or in euros, so we can link that to what you said in terms of the loss of revenue. So basically, you have a much deteriorated, you know, financial position, and then you have to find money for that. All the things you said about a financial risk that are and the possible role of some public authorities, like in the Netherlands, just giving some guarantee. So if I understood well, it's more clarification point. Does it mean that if you are an exhibitor, you enlist to participate, to invest some money, and there are some costs, but you invest to participate to a fair in the Netherlands? If that fair is postponed or cancelled, the government comes as an insurer and cover that. That if that could be confirmed. And then what our Polish colleague said about, but the line was not good on my side at that moment. He mentioned a number of bankruptcies that already happened. If he could specify that, you know, all those things are interesting, useful illustration to go beyond general statements. Over to you.
So the bankruptcies, Tomasz, if I may repeat that.
It was 50% of the whole companies dealing with the stand construction and exhibition services.
So you said 50?
Yes, yes.
And we need to know that Poland is famous for its stand builders, and they build stands across the whole EU. They are the ones that serve all huge international exhibitions, and it might really present a problem in the autumn for many exhibitors who relied on these companies. All right. So
Barbara, I don't know if you can see.
Sorry?
Sylvia has her hand up. I don't know if you can see her screen, and then Uta as well. But Sylvia first.
Yes, please, Sylvia then.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to elaborate on the questions you just had, Eric. When it comes to an insurance scheme for the financial risk, I believe the most important thing, that is what I said in the very beginning, is to give exhibitors confidence back, because they are the backbone for successful exhibitions. And if they are fearing that with rising incidences, trade fairs are cancelled, they won't register for trade fairs. And so what we are looking at also here in Germany is some kind of program that will make it possible for them to be ensured that in the unlikely case, maybe a trade fair will be cancelled again, that there will be some damages that will be covered by the state or by any subsidies. And that would make, I believe, a huge difference for all the trade fairs and also for the trade fair organizers, because more and more exhibitors will register. Because right now we are looking at so many insecurities, starting from travel conditions to are the hotels open, are the restaurants open, is the infrastructure there, up to are all the service partners that I need there. And so they take quite a risk when registering for a trade fair right now. And if that could be covered somehow, that would make, I believe, for all participants in trade fairs a huge difference. Confidence is what we lack right now.
Sylvia, you're right. And we've seen in some countries these funds for cultural events, but not for business and professional events. I'm not saying it's not important to have them for culture. We also host culture events, but to bring also the companies, the business, different sectors back to a certain dynamic situation, we need the platforms to open, and this is something I think that would really help a lot.
On my side, a follow-up question. So, for instance, the travel agency and tour operator had flagged that already some time ago, because saying that basically the insurance sector has pulled out. They are not ready to provide any coverage for, COVID-related repatriation, COVID-related, you have to stay at the hotel. and of course, in our system, you cannot force the private insurance to come back on the market. So basically, they look at the cost, the premium that they can get. So are you seeing any private insurers coming back with an offer, even if they ask for a high premium? Or is it really no return as yet, no perspective of the private insurers coming back, and in between now and when they return, it needs to be a public, like for cultural event, a public guarantee? Over.
Sylvia, I don't know. I can say what I've heard from different members in different countries, that there are no insurances available, and they just adapt their general terms and conditions and try to find solutions with the exhibitors case by case. Force majeure pandemic is not insured anymore, will be excluded, and there is nothing to do. So the financial risk is with the operators, the venues, between the contracting parties. And of course, we need to be flexible, otherwise we will not attract any clients. So this contributes, of course, to our not so ideal financial situation. Uta, you have your hand raised.
Yes. First thing, Poland. Yes, we are witnessing that some of our members are facing bankruptcy. Others are leaving the industry. They are doing interior design now. They are building kitchens. They are building mobile homes. They are building houseboats. They are building fancy other things. And they found a market right now. So I'm not sure if they are able to return to our industry. Which will give additional pressure on getting shows run without having people doing the carpentry, doing the installation, doing the dismantling. Then coverage for business events. Yes, we witnessed that we don't see any insurances taking care. And we know that from our own general meeting that the Netherlands are willing to secure by a state fund business events. We were planning to have it in June. We had to postpone it to next year. But if we would have had it scheduled in July, then there would have been a state fund who's was supporting the situation in case we had to cancel due to COVID. So there is something happening in the Netherlands for sure. From other countries, I don't know anything like this in this concrete manner.
Thanks, Uta. Perhaps we have 5 minutes left. Very briefly, Eric, your outlook on the future with the updated industrial strategy, SME strategies, everything going sustainable, Innovation Council. There will be a huge, massive transition in all industries in Europe. We can see that already in the innovation part, DG Research, trade fairs and exhibitions are being used as the instrument to bring these startups to markets abroad in Asia or in the US or wherever, Middle East. So the Commission considers the trade fairs as a key instrument for market access and internationalization. Is there a chance, and how can we proceed to position ourselves not only with the socioeconomic impact that we're generating to the ecosystem of the tourism, but for the, now he has left, for the industrial revolution, if you want, for sustainable and more digital in general? How do you see our role, and what can we do to be more present in that?
Sorry about that. It's just a family issue. My daughter's coming back from school and I had to close a few doors. So, but I heard what you said. So about the outlook, yes. In terms of well, the Commission and doing that, it's part of what I have to organize. we see a B2B matchmaking event fairs as a way, a key instrument for market penetration, market access. For instance, we are doing that for the moment still virtual, but for the EU-China tourism market penetration. So it's not only about promoting destination Europe as a quality destination and safe destination. There's also that of course we are not there to replace the market. There was no market failure. Sometimes it's more giving a boost, free ticket. It's a way to set eligibility conditions. So it's basically giving a free ticket to those who cannot afford to go to those events. So it's a kind of temporary support. Then in terms of the future, we are working for the moment on a transition pathway. So we have a number of, I think I mentioned that or not, but so we have a number of common EU target, especially about climate change, a number of target by 2050. So 2050 is a long time, especially it's difficult to discuss that with sectors that are just in survival mode or just restarting mode. But the idea is that we need to set a kind of transition pathway for 2030, just to define together, perhaps not something we can do next year, but in this decade, things that we need to do to be in a good position to deliver on the 2050 objective of decarbonization, etc. In this ecosystem, there's a lot linked to passenger transport, but also infrastructure. A number of Swedish airports now have already managed to, with public support, to complete, but they start early, complete investment to have carbon neutral installation. So this is also something that I know your industry was working on. So we understand that first you have to survive, and then we need to see what kind of support can be given, or there's a change in the implementation timing. But this is the kind of thing we need to discuss together. Is the idea of co-creation of that transition pathways. Where do we need to be in 2030 in order to deliver what we decided for 2050? And that transition pathway will be an important part of that new European tourism agenda that has been announced by the Commission. So Commissioner Breton might make announcements soon about that. It's not for me to prejudge on his final decision or announcement, but there should be something announced possibly this month. And there we looked globally about what the EU, what authorities at other level, and what the private sector could do together as kind of joint commitment for making the tourism ecosystem. And when I say tourism, it's travel and tourism, and it's business, leisure, and visiting friends and families. But to make it more resilient, that's the first thing. Then greener and more digital. Of course, using a number of digital tools is a way to make it greener, and a way to make it, it's more a tool to make it greener and to make it more resilient. By going green, it will be also more resilient, but that is the outlook. And regulatory changes and funding reorientation or increase should follow. So is the idea, where should we be and how do we get there? And there is a part of the thing that can be done at EU level in terms of the regulatory environment and in terms of the funding opportunities. Over to you.
Thank you, Eric. Nick, do we have any questions that I perhaps did not see? We need to take them now. We're a little bit running out of time.
There weren't any questions. There are a couple of comments, but I think all good for you to wrap up.
All right, then I'll do that. Thanks everyone for your contributions. Very important, and also for Eric to have firsthand insight, not only sort of by me as a spokesperson. I think it's always more interesting. So we can see there is a positive outlook on the mid and long-term run, as long as the pandemic can be contained and travel can be fully restored. And I would say we should prepare to play our role for all these important changes to come. And we already have at the venues in place all sustainability measures, and there is a lot that needs to be upgraded and can be done on the digital still to even host then all those industries that will be driving all these changes. So it's a little bit also of the hen and the egg. If we need to have 5G at the venue so the industries can show their automation projects, for example, on the show floor. So we tend to be positive, I would say. Let's see that the summer proves that. And I also like to stress that we have learned a lot through this crisis, also in our industry, and we hopefully can be stronger and more resilient after this pandemic, and always serving the clients and the communities. So I think Europe has an asset with our industry, and let's use it wisely for the future of our economies and societies. I'd like to thank all the speakers, all the participants from not only Europe, all over the world. And of course, the UFI team for hosting, and the EIA EMICA team for all the work over these difficult times. And for tomorrow, happy Global Exhibitions Day. We should still be celebrating that we are a strong community and we will stick together and we'll make it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Back to Nick.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, just to wrap up. So tomorrow is Global Exhibitions Day. In fact, today in Australia, it's just started. globalexhibitionsday.org, or please look out. Hopefully it should be all over your social media. I think by the end of yesterday, we were up to 9 million people reached and about 50 countries. So hopefully we're trying to get as many as 70 million, which was last year's number. So please do take part tomorrow, and we'll see you there. Next slide, Pascal. So next week we have an Ask Me, sorry, on the 16th of June, in 2 weeks tomorrow, we have an Ask Me Anything. So a chance to meet the various UFI teams. So we have the 4 regional directors, we have Christian, our research manager, Kai, Angela, our education and program manager, and Caitlin. So it's a good chance to just meet the various UFI teams, to talk about all the different projects we're working on. So please join us for that. There weren't any comments to follow up, but please, we can go to the next slide. Pascal, thank you to our diamond sponsors, TSEB, Qatar National Tourism Council, Shenzhen World and Freeman. And finally, as I did in the chat, I invite you all to join our European conference, which takes place next week digitally on the 9th, 10th of June, ufieurope.org. So we have some fantastic speakers, some formal and informal networking and roundtable sessions, and some good fun as well. So please join us for that. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.